Hello. Boy, it's good to be back. It's been a while, right? It's been a couple weeks. Hi, I'm Keith. If you are new here, I am the meditation teacher on this channel, Meditation Breaks. Thank you for the sub. Appreciate that. So if you are new, this is kind of how things work on this channel each week, barring like a family emergency, which is why I wasn't around previous weeks. Each week we look at a different topic and how it's related to meditation. So kind of like a practical way of incorporating meditation into our life. That might scare some new people because you're like, hey, I don't even know the basics. What's with all this topic stuff? So even though each week is a different topic, I always start the first kind of half of this session with introducing meditation. So if you're brand new, you never meditated before, cool. You're in a good spot. We're going to go over, what is meditation? How do we do it? Why bother? All those things that you're probably wondering. So that's how we'll begin. We'll talk a little about meditation, then we'll do a very short breathing meditation together to get everyone feeling somewhat comfortable about, that's how you meditate. Okay, cool. And then we'll get into our topic and do a second meditation on that topic. And that's kind of our cadence each week. Cool. Zach, I'll email me and we'll exchange information. Cool. So today's topic, just in case you're wondering, is about uncertainty, which is something that has been really prevalent in my life in the last month or so. And so we've talked about that on this channel before, but we're going to look at it from a different angle. So that'll be kind of fun. But before we get to that, we got to learn what meditation is, right? So when we think of this word, meditation, what comes to mind? This is sometimes referred to as a generic image, or generic image of an apple. Like if I was like, think of an apple, your mind thinks of an apple, happens so fast. Our mind is so speedy that we don't really notice it, right? So our kind of generic image for meditation, most of us anyway, is, person sitting on floor with their legs crossed and their arms like this or whatever. And they look super peaceful and calm, right? And we're like, that's cool. I want to do that. So this is our kind of basic visual of what we think constitutes as meditation. Sitting on the floor, cross-legged, with your arms like this, with your eyes closed, is a way to meditate. But it's just a seating position. It's not the actual essence of what meditation is. So there's a definition that I like to put forth, and that is that meditation is a technique that you can learn to familiarize your mind with stuff. And this idea of familiarizing ourselves with things has a really important output. Now, we don't really go around saying, I'm familiarizing my mind with this language, or I'm familiarizing my mind with how to ride a bike, right? We don't talk that way. And so when we think about it, familiarizing your mind, what does that even mean? But the way that our mind becomes familiar with things is the same way our body becomes familiar with things. And the output of the familiarity of each of those is the same. So we can look at a more kind of normal example to see what is this output from becoming familiar with something. So if you think about walking, right? Barring any physical disability, you're probably a pretty good walker at this point in your life, right? You can walk backwards. That's me walking backwards in place. You can walk while talking on the phone. You could walk while whistling. I don't know. You can do a lot of stuff, right? When you were a kid, That was not happening. In fact, you didn't know anything about walking. You didn't even know what that word meant. And then when you started to figure it out, you're wobbling all over the place. I have a nephew who's kind of walking. He's still super unstable, So this thing then is really kind of second nature to us now. Wasn't always this way. It is a learned skill, a learned behavior. Hey, Beverly. So the output of becoming really familiar with something is it starts to come a little easier to you, starts to show up more naturally, right? We have to, put less effort or concentration into it, right? So like walking is one example, but learning a language, right? We have to really like study the words, right? And then when we like are fluent in the language, we don't even have to think about it. I'm speaking right now in English, but I don't have to think about, this word means that, like it just is kind of second nature, right? So this is our superpower, I think, as humans. We can become so familiar with something that it starts to become effortless or like our default. And this is true for mental mind states as well as kind of more real world kind of examples of like walking. So here with meditation, we are generally worrying about mind states. So things like anxiety, right? Things like patience, kindness, right? Maybe you're like, oh, Keith, I got into this to relax, right? So often we think meditation relaxes us, but meditation is not relaxing you. What's happening is meditation is teaching you, if this is what you want to become familiar with, to become so familiar with relaxed you, this version of yourself that is relaxed, that is in there, if you're honest with yourself, becoming so familiar with that version of yourself that what happens? It starts to show up more often. We have to try less hard to be calm, to be patient, right? So it works both ways too, by the way. So if you ever, wondering why it's so easy to get frustrated, we don't have to try. Oh, hold on a second. I got to stop and try to get frustrated. Never happened. No one's ever said that because we've had a lot more practice becoming frustrated than being patient. Not because we're incapable or like bad or something. That's just kind of how things go unless we actively try to teach our mind a different thing, right? So meditation is a lot about choice, choosing what do you want your mind to be familiar with? Do you want it to be more familiar with patience than anger? Do you want it to be familiar with kindness, compassion? Like whatever you want it to be familiar with, you can do, right? The technique is the same. Cool? Okay. So that's a little spiel of what is this meditation thing? But how do we do it, right? How do we go about learning how to do this, training in this technique? So when we start learning, almost always we start with breathing meditation. Probably heard of it. Probably have done it. It's the kind of really like predominant entry point into meditation, and for really good reason, because it's teaching you something super important about meditation. And that is that you don't need any like specific external conditions to do this, to practice this, right? You don't need to go to a lake. You don't need to go into a cave for 3 months. You don't need to like leave your friends or family behind, or, remove all your possessions. Like you don't have to do any of that. All you need is your breath and a little like intentional practice with it, right? So that's kind of, at least I think, why it's really good to start with breathing meditation. And what breathing meditation essentially is just meditation where your breath is the focal point. You can meditate with anything being the focal point. Right? It's also, I guess, more formally called single-pointed concentration, which is a fancy way of saying focus on one thing. Now, this is hard. because we're not used to it, right? It's not hard because we're incapable, but it's hard because we're not familiar with it. We are really familiar with focusing on a million things at once. In fact, that's like encouraged in our kind of like modern society. Juggle as many things as possible, right? Be more productive, do as many things at once. Like, it's encouraged, right? And so our mind has had a lot of practice doing that. And so when we try to do single pointed concentration, sometimes there's some resistance. Our mind is like, what are you doing? I can focus on a million things. Why just one? Right? So this is the training part. We have to train our mind to kind of normalize this and also see some of the benefit in doing it. Right? So we're going to do some breathing meditation here right now. Yay! And from like a purely instructional standpoint, 3 steps. Step 1, we're going to actively choose to do this. The reason is that sometimes we have like a meditative experience, right? Maybe you're like in the zone, right? Working on something, right? And we focus so exclusively on something that everything kind of fades into the background. We're like super plugged in, right? That's kind of a meditative experience, but it generally is happening accidentally, right? So we want to start to teach our mind to do this intentionally, right? So we are going to intentionally choose to do this. All we do there is just kind of make a little promise to ourselves. Then I'll be guiding this. You're not going to be on your own. Don't worry. Then we're going to focus exclusively on our breath, right? Our goal is to kind of focus so exclusively on our breath that all the other busy stuff in our mind starts to fade a little bit into the background, right? So we're going to do that. And whenever you notice that your mind's starting to drift, thinking about work tomorrow, thinking about what somebody said something earlier or whatever, right? Whatever our minds think about, whenever we notice that, we're just going to say, not right now, right? We're not saying these are bad thoughts. They're not. They're thoughts, right? Our mind thinks that's what it does, but just not now, right? We're in control of our mind, and so we're going to place these thoughts aside for the time being. You can actually imagine yourself doing that. And then step 3 is we bring our attention back to our breath. That's it. Choose to focus single pointedly on your breath. Notice when your attention drifts, and then guiding your attention back when it has drifted. Cool? This is a little loop we do over and over again. And this is our practice of breathing meditation. Cool? Okay. So you may notice I am not sitting cross-legged on a floor. I am in a chair. You can be wherever you want. Find a nice, comfy spot, be it chair, floor, laying down. It truly doesn't matter. If it did matter, this would not be a really great technique if we had to sit on the floor to do it. So find a place that's comfy, right? You can go ahead and close your eyes. This will help with some of the visual distractions. And I'm going to guide us through about a 5-minute breathing meditation. Okay. Whenever you start a meditation, take a moment to check in with yourself. Actually ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? In this exact moment. Maybe you're feeling tired after a long day. Maybe you're feeling energetic, happy, melancholy. Whatever it is fine. We are not doing anything about this. We're not judging. We are observing. Observing what your mind is up to. This is called mindfulness. It's a word you probably have heard before. Mindfulness is an active awareness of your own thoughts moment to moment for the purpose of being able to respond skillfully to those thoughts. take a moment and check in. Having done that, you can now make a promise to yourself or setting an intention. And the promise you're making is to focus single-pointedly, exclusively on your own breath for the next couple of minutes to the best of your ability. That's it. Just say that to yourself. Let that promise sit with you in your mind. And then turn your attention to your breath completely, exclusively. Breathing in, breathing out. Gently, naturally. However you normally breathe is perfect. You do not need to change anything about your breath. No need to take big, deep inhales or forcefully exhale air. Just very normal breathing, however that comes to you. In and out. As you start to relax into your seat, at some point, maybe quickly, your mind might drift. Maybe you're thinking about something that happened earlier today, or something you have to do later after this class ends. Whenever you notice that your attention has drifted away from your breath, even just slightly, we can say not right now to those other thoughts. Actually picture yourself placing them beside you. And then purposefully guide your attention back to your own breath, back to breathing in and out, gently, naturally. Single-pointedly focused on each breath. See if you can follow the air as it makes its journey in and out of your body. Whenever you breathe in, can you watch, visualize that air as it enters your body? Can you feel your chest expanding to accommodate it? And then when you breathe out, can you follow the air's journey there as well? Feel your chest contracting. Watch as the air leaves your body back into the atmosphere where it dissipates. Such a short time with this pocket of air. But such an important short amount of time. Finding fascination or interest in your breath. That's what we're after. In and out. gently, naturally. Keep bringing your attention back to your breath whenever it drifts. This process, choosing to focus single pointedly on your own breath, noticing when your attention drifts, being able to bring your attention back to breathing. That is meditation. Each one of you is meditating right now. You are training your mind to tap into its natural, peaceful state. You're training your mind to focus on what you want to focus on. And right now, the only thing you want to focus on is breathing in and out gently, naturally. So for the last few moments, just continue to breathe and enjoy sitting here with your breath. No need to think about too much. Just take a little time for you. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Hello. Welcome back. Okay, that's breathing meditation. So you probably had one of two experiences. One, you're like, oh, it wasn't so bad. Or two, you're like, whoa, my mind's all over the place. Right? Both experiences are totally normal, and you'll probably fluctuate between those two for a very long time. The thing to keep in mind, I think this is really important, is that the goal here is not to never get distracted. Sometimes we think, oh, I got distracted, and so my meditation was bad. I got distracted, and so I'm not good at meditation. No. The only goal here is to start to become more aware of when your attention drifts so you can bring it back on track earlier than normal. That's it. Over time, it's going to just become more natural. It'll be easier for you to kind of settle with your breath. Your mind will be like, oh, we're doing the focus on one thing. Okay, I know this, right? Right now, your mind's like, what the heck is going on here? This is strange, right? So as you're, doing this on your own, I would just encourage you to keep in mind, and this is it. I know this is difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for everyone who tries meditation. It's hard to not judge our meditation, right? Oh, I got distracted. Oh, my this and that. But you sitting down and doing this is the practice, right? Cool. Hey Norma. Oh, thank you. I missed you guys too. Hopefully I'm gonna be on a little bit of a better cadence here. So hopefully no more large gaps. I appreciate that. Thanks. So that's breathing meditation, right? Not that bad. I'm going to move on to our topic for today. But if you do have any other questions on breathing meditation or anything that we talked about thus far, feel free to ask. The best way to get your question answered is right in the chat, like you've seen some people do. Take advantage of the fact that I'm with you, sort of. Though I will give my email out towards the end of the session. So if you have any questions that you'd want answered that way, that's totally fine too. Cool? Great. All right. We're talking about uncertainty. This is a topic that is pretty prevalent in meditation land. Why? Because uncertainty has a very close relationship with anxiety, which is something that is a huge part of like why we get into meditation. That's why I got into meditation years and years ago, for clinical depression and anxiety. And so this concept of uncertainty is very much in league with anxiety. And we've talked about it a good amount here on this channel. If you're new and you'd like to hear about those things, you can go back and look at these old sessions and see how I've aged. But today we're going to talk about uncertainty, and we're going to like approach it from a little bit different than we usually do. So we're kind of getting towards the same resolution, but we're going to approach it from a different perspective. This is a really important thing about meditation, and it's why I use so many different weird analogies, because, not everyone connects with analogy one. You might be like, I don't know about that one. Oh, but analogy two, that made a lot of sense. So we're trying to think about these kind of broad concepts, uncertainty, and how it plays a role in what we do in our life from a lot of different perspectives. Cool? And you might be like, is this meditation? Yes, because meditation is choosing to focus on one thing, noticing when your attention drifts, bringing it back. So we meditated on our breath. We, in a little bit, will meditate on uncertainty, right? A concept. Sometimes that's called contemplation, but it's the same thing. And that's the cool part about meditation. We can utilize it for a lot of different things in our life, right? Becoming familiar with a concept or idea or resolution. Like there's just really endless things that you can do with it, and the process is the same as what we just did. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about uncertainty, and then we'll do a meditation on it. So what does that mean? Uncertainty. Not certain, right? Not guaranteed, not known, right? Unknown. A lot of different ways you can kind of categorize it, but they all kind of are the same, And when we think about this word, right? Not knowing. Yeah, not knowing. That's kind of how I think of it, right? Not knowing, right? Now, what does it feel like to not know? Like, what does uncertainty feel like? Usually one of two things, right? Overwhelmingly worrisome. That's the unsettling. There it is. Yeah. Unsettling. So like anxiety inducing, worrisome, not fun, right? Not fun. Might even kind of categorize this as like negative, right? It's not great, right? We don't want to be uncertain. Uncomfortable. Good one. Uncomfortable is a really good one. I love that, Patricia. We're trying to think of the worst. Oh, yeah. You're getting into it now. So this kind of viewing uncertainty in like I'll say like a negative kind of fashion, comes very easily to us, right? Apprehension. Woo, good one. I'll write that down. And sometimes we do like some really kind of interesting things to try to combat uncertainty, right? Like we leave early to avoid traffic. Traffic is uncertain. Hey, Gail, traffic is uncertain, right? We don't like that. We don't want it to screw up our plans, and so we're going to leave early, right? If we're, we got a cough, we're like, oh, and we look up on WebMD, right? It doesn't usually help. It's a list of a million symptoms, right? But we are doing these things to try to combat uncertainty, to combat the unknown, combat variance, right? Non-guarantees, whatever you want to call it, right? Do we have this next week? Yes. Zach, yes. Lucia, but it can also mean opportunities, yes. So while uncertainty is kind of, I would feel comfortable saying overwhelmingly viewed negative, there also is this kind of opposite of it where it's like exciting, right? Intriguing. At least that's how, we're supposed to feel about it, right? That's what they say. The unknown, right? Oh, anything can happen, right? Is this a class? Yes. So for this like exciting aspect of uncertainty, which you may or may not be that familiar with. Some people deal with uncertainty differently. It gets a little foggy, right? So like, what about like gambling? Right? I was thinking about this earlier. Gambling is like, for some people, exciting, right? It's the unknown, chance, what could be, no guarantees, intriguing, right? But it's like, even though it's those things, it's still kind of steeped in the same trepidation. Great word. It's still steeped in the same kind of unknown fogginess, right? Now, gambling or all these other examples of the more common way to look at uncertainty, what do they share? There's something that they share in common. The thing that they share is that there is a correct outcome, right? At least in our mind, right? There's the thing that should happen, right? And even though this kind of thing of chance might be exciting, if that doesn't happen, then we're mad, right? Like if we're like, I don't know, playing cards or something, and we're like, all excited about how we're going to win money, and then we don't. Well, then this quickly turned around, and we're not too happy, right? So whether or not it's making a to-do list to plan our day so it kind of goes according to plan, like there is a imagined should, I'll call it, like it should go this way. There is an outcome that you want, right? Taking a chance, but not being sure about possible results or outcome. Yeah, and that's touching on a lot of what we're getting at here, right? This idea of that uncertainty is paired with us, like kind of the negative uncertainty is paired with us expecting an outcome, right? Which is not really like the nature of uncertainty, right? Uncertainty is we don't know, but it's like we don't know, but this, I want this. So this can also be linked to something called attachment, which is a really big concept in meditation. We do not have time to talk about it extensively, though I'm happy to in a different class if it's interesting to you. Attachment is thinking I need this thing or situation or person or object or whatever to like be safe and happy and comfortable, right? So in this case, we're becoming attached to an outcome, right? There should not be traffic on my way to work, right? We are getting attached to that outcome. And then if that outcome does not come to fruition, we're annoyed, right? That's what being annoyed is, right? Things have gone differently than they should have, right? So what if we remove this idea of attachment to uncertainty, right? So like, for example, I say, hey, I'm either going to give you one single $100 bill, or I will give you 5 $20 bills. Whatever. Right? Like, we don't have an attachment to one of these things because in the end, both kind of getting us what we want, right? We're getting $100 or whatever. So we don't really care, right? Two favorite foods. Let's say I'm like a master chef, which I'm not. And you're at my restaurant, which I don't have one. But in this fantasy world, you are. And I come to you and I say, hey, what are your two favorite foods? Right? And you're like, I don't know, something. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring out one of those. You're not like, oh, I really hope I get not that the favorite food. Like it's sort of like there's uncertainty, right? You don't know what I'm bringing out, right? You don't know what denomination of money I'm giving you, but it's not viewed in like a kind of apprehensive way. It's almost viewed in an exciting way, right? What's it going to be, right? Now, these examples are both like things that are really cool. So there's that. But even with the negative, this kind of makes sense, right? So like, if I was going to say, hey, today, I can see into the future. Hey, at some point today, you're going to spill your coffee or your water. And you're like, well, both of those are not great options. But one of them is happening. So, I mean, I don't know, liquid's a liquid. Maybe you'd prefer the water because your coffee wakes you up, but it's not this kind of like agonizing, anxiety-inducing thing. I don't know, maybe it is. So removing attachment starts to put some cracks in the armor of uncertainty. But what happens if instead of removing this kind of like attachment to an outcome, we understand this idea of attachment, right? And by that, I mean understanding impermanence. This is a big word, another big topic. But impermanence means it not permanent, right? Won't be like this forever, right? And the nature of life is very impermanent, uncertain, right? So one of the best examples I can think of is bubbles. You know bubbles? You blow bubbles and like, I'm going to do a bubble. Right? Now, there's not a person here. I don't care how old you are. Bubbles are cool. And if someone's blowing bubbles, you're looking at it. Always, right? Bubbles are something that we very much do not have attachment to, right? We're not like upset when a bubble pops, right? And part of that is because we very much instinctively, like truly deep down know that bubbles are inherently uncertain. We don't know how long they'll be around. We don't know if they'll be big or small or go over here or go over there, right? We don't know these things. It's uncertain. But we know that they won't be around forever. We know they're impermanent. We like understand the nature of them. Impermanence, uncertainty is a part of them. And so what happens? We don't get upset when bubbles pop, right? We kind of almost are just enjoying bubbles in the moment, for however long they're there. We're just watching them. Yay. Oh, that one popped. I don't know. That's the last time you've seen bubbles. But I feel like this is a really interesting phenomenon to think of because there are things in our life where we totally are bought into this thing like uncertainty is normal, right? It's not positive or negative. It just is. Like it's just part of life. It is life. It is the nature of things, right? So if we can kind of get behind this idea, then we can start to think about, well, what other things are, we have realistic expectations. Amazing, right? What other things are impermanent? That's what we're going to meditate on, right? Because it turns out or a lot of things that are impermanent. We just, whereas bubbles, we like kind of, I don't even know how to put it. Like we just instinctively know and accept that. Other things we like intellectually know they're impermanent, but not at that level, right? And because of that, we start to look at the uncertainty of those things in a negative way instead of just enjoying that thing because it's existing right now, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit in our meditation. You don't have to worry about any of that. I will be talking through it, but I just wanted to give you a little background. So when I talk about bubbles, health is a very good one. When I start talking about bubbles, you're not like, what is this guy talking about? Okay, so we're going to meditate on this idea, right, that we just talked about. But the cadence is exactly the same. We're going to start, we'll do a little focus on our breath just to resettle. But then we're going to focus single pointedly on this concept, right? We're going to meditate on this concept. And I'll be, guiding through it. So you're just kind of listening and taking that in. And the idea is that just like we become really familiar with being able to focus on our breath, we become really familiar with this idea of looking at uncertainty in a different way, right? Ooh, health and friendships, two exceptional examples of impermanence, right? Now, since you brought it up, friendships, right? That's a great one. So we know, people change, we move, this and that. Somebody says something, but like sometimes we get mad that happened, right? Even though we know deep down that that's it's always been a possibility. It will happen at some point. You like, even like even if you're friends forever, one of you kind of passes on before the other. Like we still are like really kind of unsettled by that if it happens. Health, same thing. We know we're not going to be healthy forever. But then when it happens, we're like, I can't believe this is happening, right? So this is an example of knowing intellectually impermanence and like really kind of internalizing it different, right? Really good examples. Okay, cool. Sit comfortably. Sorry, maybe this is not like an uplifting lesson. I don't know. Sit comfortably. Good. Go ahead and close your eyes, and we're going to do another meditation. Be slightly longer, but not much. All right. Take a moment and check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? In this moment, it is not a comparison to before. Before is done. Just now. What is your mind up to? And having checked in, you can now briefly, once again, turn your attention, your full, undivided attention, to your own breath. Breathing in and out, gently, naturally, just to relax a little bit. Smooth, gentle breathing. Very natural. However you normally breathe is perfect. In and out. If you notice your attention no longer exclusively on your breath, no big deal. You can just say not right now to those other thoughts. We'll get to them later. And then with those thoughts placed to the side, guide your attention back to breathing. in and out, gently and naturally. Having done some breathing meditation, maybe we're feeling a little more relaxed, a little more in the zone, even just microscopically. We can now use our more clear mind state to think about something. In this case, we're going to think about uncertainty and its relationship to impermanence. I'd like you to imagine that you are sitting in a park. It's just you sitting on a bench. Bring to mind what the bench looks like. It's a beautiful spring or summer day. There's not a cloud in the sky. The sun is warm. And as you're sitting on this bench, off to your peripheral, you catch a glimpse of somebody blowing bubbles. And so you watch the bubbles. Some are small. Some are big. Some pop immediately. Others last a very long time. The nature of bubbles is uncertainty. We don't know where they will go. We don't know how long they will be here. But what we do know is that they won't be bubbles forever. They are impermanent by nature. And so, as you're watching these bubbles, this thing that you are intimately familiar with its impermanent nature, we don't think about that. We don't worry if they'll pop. We don't worry if they'll travel far. We don't worry if they'll be large or small. We just enjoy bubbles in the moment for however long they are. And that person who is blowing bubbles now moves on, walks away. You can no longer see them. But you're starting to think about what other things share this impermanent quality. Maybe a gentle breeze kicks up. Is the breeze impermanent? It might feel wonderful on a hot summer day, but we're not worried about it stopping. We know it won't always be there. So we just enjoy it for what it is in this moment. Maybe you catch a glimpse of a leaf that has detached from its branch, and you're watching it float down slowly back and forth through the air. This leaf will not always be airborne. We're not worried about how long until it reaches the ground. We know that the leaf's time in the air is impermanent, uncertain. We don't know how long, where it will land, so we just enjoy watching it. And as you're sitting there on this bench in this park, you notice your own feet. Your hands, your chest, legs, fingers, and toes. These appendages provide so much value to us. Exploring, crafting, embracing. This gift, this body, it too is impermanent. It is very much like bubbles. We don't know how long we'll be able to walk. We don't know how long we'll be able to craft, to draw, to play an instrument. We don't know how long. But we do know one day we won't be able to. And so, can we learn to view our body, our life, our time the same way we do bubbles? Enjoying this exact moment, appreciating your body, mind in this exact moment. Can we be okay with uncertainty, even for something as precious as ourselves? Just sit with that for a little while on the bench in the park. Okay. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Sorry to take you away from the park. Unless you are in a park. I don't know where you are. So you could be in a park. Okay. So what did we just do? We did a little breathing meditation. Cool. And then we shifted. Instead of focusing single pointedly on our breath, we focused single pointedly on this image, right? Using our imagination, imagery, but ultimately for a purpose, a goal, to think about this concept of uncertainty and how our level of kind of anxiety or worry is kind of linked with some of these other facets of life that we don't often think about when having the experience of something being uncertain, right? So I know this is a little kind of maybe out there, a little more kind of like esoteric meditation, but I think it's really cool. It's definitely something that's been prevalent for me lately. I think I mentioned last time that I recently lost my job. And so that's a huge level of uncertainty for me, right? And it's worrisome. Why? Because I have an outcome. Like I'm like, yeah, I don't know when I'll get a job, but I want it to be now. Right? Like, so this idea, it kind of shows up in a lot of different spaces when we think about it, when we have kind of brought it to mind, right? Pleasure can be fleeting, but so can pain. Yes, both things impermanent, right? Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's it for today. Hope you had a good time. And yes, I will be back here next week, barring an unexpected incident. But next week we will talk about meditation and a different topic or something. Oh, Gail, thanks. I appreciate that. Right. Georgina, oh, I'm glad you found it interesting. Yeah, this is a cool topic. Maybe we're like, man, I just wish he would just make us relax. But this is a really interesting thing to think about, right? It's pretty prevalent in our life, I think. Thank you. Appreciate all the kind words and well wishes. You guys are the best. You guys are the best. Okay, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. It's Keith@meditationbreaks.com. Keith@meditationbreaks.com, spelled immaculately, hopefully. That is my email. If you have any questions on meditation, email me. Also, I do one-on-one private instruction. Maybe you're like, yo, meditation seems pretty cool. I'd like to see where I can go with this. I do one-on-one instruction, really good for focusing on something you want to focus on. Maybe you're here for anxiety. We can really kind of tap into that. Maybe you're not, but you're here for something else. We can look into that too. So if that's interesting to you, just email me and we'll figure out a time that works. I do it virtually mostly, unless you're in the greater Denver, Colorado area. But it's pretty laid back. I'm pretty casual. So it can be a fun thing to do if that's interesting to you. Otherwise, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you all next time.